Here is my recap on Dexter Season 7, Episode 10, which is entitled The Dark Whatever. That's actually the name of the episode. So lots of interesting things happen in this episode. We have her father actually shows up out of the blue and kind of startles both Dexter and Hannah when they're in her house. And he just shows up at the window. And you find out he's an ex-con who's out, has never treated Hannah very well, almost allowed her to drown when she was younger. And actually in this episode, he ends up hitting her up for 20 grand to start a business that he wants to start up. He wants her to pay to start up his business, basically. And she refuses to do that. And he destroys her greenhouse, threatens her, and actually comes to Dexter later in the episode and says, I know somebody, a girl who watched Hannah kill when she got out of juvie. She was talking to a therapist, and this person either was a caseworker or the therapist, but Hannah actually poisoned this therapist and killed her with rat poison, and this girl knows about it. Well, Dexter takes it upon himself to make sure that he can never do that by killing him. Now, he gets to the stage of killing him and admits this guy is not under his code, and he's not. But what happened in this episode is Hannah helps Dexter and basically teaches him that he has no dark passenger. Dexter mentions to her that he has a dark passenger, and she's like, there's no such thing, and teaches him that he's in control. There's nobody in control, and he can do what he wants to do. And there's another side story that's going on that's tied to this, because in the previous 2 episodes, there ends up being this arsonist that they call the Phantom, going around killing people by setting them on fire and doing these intricate crime scenes that have to do with fire and people getting burned to death. And Dexter thinks it's actually the guy who is the forensic specialist for fires, but it's not. He actually does some investigation on him and finds out that he is not the guy involved. And there's a kind of a funny scene when he figures this out. Dexter does end up tracking down the guy who is committing these murders and goes to kill him, and knows that the police department is looking at this guy as well. And he had promised Deborah that he wouldn't take any of their cases. And he's got the knife in hand and he's ready to kill this guy. And he stops and cuts him loose. And that's when the police show up and actually arrest the guy. So Dexter did not need to get involved in that. And it was shortly after that where he realized he's in control. That's the moment he stopped killing that guy and didn't go through with it, was when he realized Hannah is correct. Hannah's father actually goes to Dexter's house and says, if you don't pay me the money, I'm going to have this girl go to the police. And Dexter says, later he says, I'm not going to allow that to happen. So he shows up, tranks him, brings him out into the water, wraps him up, and then stabs him and dumps him into the water. So that's kind of where this ends. But the very last scene is, and I've got 2 other little storylines they're not minor, but I'm going to talk about 2 other storylines. And then I'll talk about what the very last scene was in this episode, which ties to the story I was just giving you. We've got Quinn, who's trying to get Nadia out of this strip joint, and they're about to ship her off, and he gets wind of it. So he brings Batista down there to rescue her. The owner and him get into a scuffle, and he actually brings out Nadia and is really beating up on her. And that's when Quinn says, you need to knock that crap off, and actually shoots him dead right there. Then he has Nadia take the gun, put it in the owner's hand, and shoot shoot Quinn in the arm, so that they can look like, there was a shootout there. And she's hesitant to do that. He actually lets her take the money and her passport out of the safe to go. And Batista's like, we can't let her do that. He says, look, she needs to go. She's here illegally. I don't want her involved in this. Otherwise, the Brotherhood's going to go and kill her. He lets her go. Later on, Batista realized there was some time between the 2 shots, and he goes to confront Quinn, and they have some words about what actually happened. So that was kind of interesting as well. All right, so we have one more storyline to talk about. We have LaGuerta and her old boss looking into Dexter possibly being the Bay Harbor butcher. And so they get really close to figuring out it's him. And LaGuerta wants to go confront Dexter, and he tells her, no, I'm going to go do it. I've known Dexter my entire life, or his entire life. I was best friends with his dad. It'll be better coming from me if I go speak with him. So they're going to have a conversation coming up as well. So there's quite a few little things going on that are all part of the overall story. You could see that they're kind of pushing a lot of stuff very quickly here in these last couple of seasons, to the point of it being a little unnatural. I mean, all these events are happening very, very, very quickly. Hannah does admit that she loves Dexter in this episode, and he says, I think I love you too. And then the final scene is Deborah at the police department going to Batista and says, we need to look into this one girl. We need to bring her in for questioning. Batista says, who is this? She says, this is a girl who said she claims she saw Hannah kill somebody when they were younger. So that girl still came forward and is coming forward. I think her father had called in prior to being killed and already made this statement to the police. So they're going to be looking into her coming up as well. So Dexter's opened up a can of worms here, and we're going to see how they're going to get out of this. But there's 2 episodes left in this season. We'll see how this season wraps up. Those reviews will be coming up very shortly. All right. See you guys on the next recap.